Here is how Ratan Tata avenged his insult by Ford Motors. In the late 1990s, Tata Motors was struggling and it wanted to sell its passenger car division because the launch of Tata Indica, its first passenger car, had received a very poor response. So in 1999, Ratan Tata flew to the US and met with officials of Ford Motors to discuss the possibility of a sale. There he met with the company's chairman, Bill Ford, and he had an extremely humiliating conversation. Ford made demeaning comments like why did Tata set his foot in manufacturing when he knew nothing about car production in the first place. And Ford also said that he would be doing Tata a favor if he brought their car production unit. The deal obviously did not go through and Ratan Tata returned home. And he made a decision to not sell the car manufacturing unit but instead turn it around. And after years of feedback implementation and hard work, Ratan Tata managed to turn Tata Motors into one of the biggest car companies in India. But the true moment of vindication for Ratan Tata came when the US automotive industry was hit hard by the global financial crisis of 2008. At this time, Ford was in an extremely delicate financial situation where it was forced to look for a buyer for Jaguar Land Rover, its most prized possession. In what turned out to be one of the most iconic stories of revenge in history, Ratan Tata acquired JLR from Ford for $2.3 billion, saving Ford from an extremely tricky financial situation. But how did Ratan Tata manage to turn Tata Motors from a struggling company into the third largest car manufacturer in India? Well, that story actually begins in the early 1990s. At this time, the car landscape in India was very different than what it is today. And the market was dominated by a handful of cars. The Maruti 800, which was manufactured by a joint venture between Maruti and Suzuki, the Ambassador, which was manufactured by Hindustan Motors, and the Padmini, sold by Premier Automobiles. But each of these cars had their own problems. The Maruti 800 was quite popular due to its affordability, but it was a very small car. There was limited headspace and leg space inside the car, which made it feel like you were sitting in a small box. While the base models also lacked basic features like air conditioning and power steering. The Ambassador partially solved this problem as it was a big and elegant car. So much so that it was a status symbol among the rich people. But this car was technologically inferior. It was based on the Morris Oxford Series 3 model from the United Kingdom, which was introduced to India way back in 1957. And this design had remained largely unchanged after that for the next 40 years. So by the 1990s, while the Ambassador commanded a cult following, it was severely outdated. Not only did it have poor fuel efficiency, but it also lacked basic features like efficient air conditioning, power windows and steering, and a smooth engine. Imagine driving a 40-year-old car today. That was what it felt like even if you bought a new Ambassador. And the Premier Padmini had its own problems. It was neither as affordable as the Maruti 800, nor as spacious and prestigious as the Ambassador. But one of the most significant problems with these cars actually had nothing to do with their performance or utility, but the design. You see, cars are an aspirational purchase. It is not just a vehicle but a symbol of your status. And the car that you own can say a lot about your net worth and personality. And none of these cars satiated the aspirational desire of a rapidly expanding India that was growing richer every single day. The original concepts for these three cars had been created several years ago in countries outside India. None of these vehicles could be described as having exciting, contemporary designs. They looked and felt prehistoric when compared with the sleek modern cars one saw in Hollywood movies in the 1990s. Occasionally, a few beautiful but expensive imported cars also made it to Indian roads. But they were a luxury only the ultra-rich could afford. So even if you were willing to pay more to buy an Ambassador instead of the Maruti 800, you could still not get a modern car with a modern design and up-to-date features. But why was the situation so bad in India? Well, that is because India was still in its early stages of development and the automotive sector was very nascent. While it might sound easy today, designing and manufacturing a reliable car requires serious technical know-how and expertise, along with billions of dollars in capital. And in the 1990s, India simply did not know how to make a car on its own. So Indian companies relied on joint ventures with foreign car makers. The Maruti 800 was basically a renamed version of the Suzuki Alto, a popular car in Japan, while the Ambassador was a renamed version of the Morris Oxford Series 3 from the UK, as I already mentioned. So Maruti and Hindustan Motors basically imported ready-to-assemble parts of these cars from these foreign companies and then assembled them here in India. While the production of some of these parts was localized by the 1990s, the integral parts continued to be imported from outside India. This not only increased the cost of the final vehicle, but also meant that the space for innovation was very limited. This was when Ratan Tata decided that this was unfair to Indians, and he thought of building the Tata Indica, India's first completely indigenous car designed and produced in India. But there was one problem. He did not know how to do it. If you have made it this far, please subscribe to my channel. I promise my content will add value for you. Moving on. See, Tata had been a major player in the automotive industry much before the 1990s, known as Tata Engineering and Locomotive Company or Telco. Telco was established way back in 1945, where it initially made locomotives for railways. Then in 1954, Telco wanted to expand into commercial vehicles. But since it did not have the technical know-how to build these vehicles, it partnered with Daimler-Benz, an automotive giant from Germany, which is now known as Mercedes-Benz. This gave birth to the TMB 312 truck, the first commercial vehicle from the house of Tatas. This partnership was extremely crucial, as it marked Tata's foray into manufacturing vehicle engines on their own for the first time. All went well for Tata and Benz for more than 6 years until 1961. At that time, the government decided to implement their own version of the Make in India policy. And that, combined with the license Raj, made it difficult for foreign brands to function in India. So in 1961, Benz ended their partnership with Tata. But by now, Telco had been making vehicles for more than half a decade, and it did not need a partner anymore. It continued manufacturing commercial vehicles and then, in the 1980s, expanded into passenger vehicles as well, launching the Tata Sierra in 1991 and the famous Tata Sumo in 1994. So by the time Ratan Tata decided to build their first car in India, Telco already had some experience with manufacturing passenger vehicles. And so in 1995, Ratan Tata decided to make his dream come true and finally commissioned the first team at Telco to create a truly Indian car from scratch. And his vision was very clear. He wanted to build a car with the internal volume of an Ambassador, the size of a Maruti Zen, priced close to the Maruti 800 and having the economy of diesel, with all of this packaged into a contemporary modern design. And all of this started with the design of the car. As I already mentioned earlier, the existing cars on Indian roads were outdated literally by several decades. And Ratan Tata knew that for Indica to be world class, its design had to be comparable with not just the best in India, but with the best in Europe and America as well. And this was the only area where Ratan Tata pulled in experts from outside of the country. He employed the famous Italian design institute named IDEA to create the design of this new car. Now, at this point, you might be wondering that if Ratan Tata was such a strong nationalist, why didn't he let his Indian workers develop the design as well, right? Well, it wasn't because he did not believe in his team's capabilities. He did. But when he visited international auto shows and expos, he saw the excellent design foreign car companies had already launched in the West. And his goal was not just to match these Western car companies in the present, but to leapfrog over them directly into the future. For that to happen, it was essential to work in the design environment of Europe, where the design ethos was decades ahead of India. Only then could he hope for a car that was actually ahead of its time. And he was successful. The final prototype of Indica, approved by Ratan Tata, looked nothing like any car on Indian roads back then, with a stylish and contemporary design that could give foreign cars a run for their money. And crucially, it was way more spacious than the Maruti 800, with enough space to easily fit the traditional Indian family of 4 to 6 people. But the challenge had just begun. The real problem was the manufacturing and sourcing of the components. The Tata Indica had 3,885 unique components of the car, which had to be locally designed and then manufactured, either in-house by Tata Motors or by capable local vendors. Now, here you have to understand that most big companies rely on third-party vendors to manufacture the components of the final product. This is true not just in the automobile sector, but in any industry that sees large-scale manufacturing of products. But the challenge for Indica was that since India was primarily importing these components up until then, there was no vendor base available to them. It had to develop a vendor community from scratch, while also ensuring that these vendors met global quality standards. And initially, these vendors, who were used to making subpar components, were shocked that they had to carry out so many big quality improvements. They wondered why they had to invest so much time and effort in improving quality when Indian consumers would be happy with less. And Tata had to convince these vendors that Indians deserved more, and Indica was determined to provide them with the best. The economic reforms of 1991, followed by the continued push for liberalization by the Vajpayee government back then, also proved to be extremely helpful. This was when several entrepreneurs who believed in the vision of the first Indian car stepped up to the occasion. And eventually, a network of more than 300 vendors was developed that supplied more than 1,000 high-quality parts for the Tata Indica. Nearly 98% of all parts used in Indica were made in India from scratch, generating 12,000 jobs in the process and establishing the first global supply chain for cars in India. And now, Ratan Tata faced the final hurdle in the process: assembling these parts to roll out the final cars on the road. A new manufacturing unit could cost upwards of $2 billion, an amount that Telco, a small automobile company back then, simply could not afford. This was when the true Indian inside Ratan Tata came to the rescue with the most epic jugaad of all time. After a thorough search, Tata found a disused car manufacturing plant of Nissan in Australia, and this plant was up for sale for just 100 crore rupees. Barely 1/6 of what Tata would have to pay for a new plant. So Tata bought this plant, and his engineers dismantled the entire plant, which had 14,800 tons of machinery, shipped it to India in about 600 containers, and then assembled it back up in Pune. This was an extremely delicate and Herculean task. All of the parts had to be marked, carefully taken apart, and then assembled back up. But because of the determination of Ratan Tata and his team, this task was executed with perfection in just 6 months. And as the cherry on top, this newly assembled plant was highly automated by the use of robots, making it the first significant robot line installed in India. And finally, the first Indica was unveiled by Ratan Tata in the Indian Auto Expo in 1998. Ratan Tata had delivered what he had promised. The Indica looked like a car straight out of a Hollywood movie. It had so much space inside. It was available for just rupees 2.6 lakh, close to Maruti at rupees 2.1 lakh, and it had a super money-saving diesel engine. The marketing campaigns also focused on this fact, using the clever tagline "more car per car," which signified how Indica offered more good looks, more space, and more engine power for the same car. Tata had received 1.15 lakh prepaid bookings for this car after that launch at the Auto Expo. But this success was short-lived. As soon as the cars were delivered, Tata started receiving complaints from several customers with a range of issues. People complained about the paint coming off, high noise and vibration, and issues with the engine as well. Good word of mouth quickly turned into bad word of mouth, and sales of Indica plummeted in the year 2000, for which Tata Motors announced its largest ever loss of rupees 500 crores. Ratan Tata was blamed for thinking out of the box and making an indigenous car, and many analysts said this move would cause the end of Tata Motors. And then of course, there were comments from Western minds, for whom India was best suited to forests, elephants, and snake charmers. This was also when Ratan Tata tried to sell his business to Ford but failed. But Ratan Tata was a man who did not give up. He reassembled his team, made sure that the existing customers received proper support, and started eliminating all the issues that had crept up with the Indica. And in 2001, Tata launched the Indica V2. All the issues eliminated, improved fuel efficiency, better ride quality, and safety features like airbags and ABS. And Tata never looked back after that. The Indica V2 was an absolute success. So much so that it gave birth to a series of cars from Tata Motors afterwards, like the Indigo, Manza, Vista, and finally the Tiago, which you see on the streets today, recording a lifetime sales of over 14.7 lakh cars in these years. And right now, Tata is leading another revolution in the EV car segment, where it has a 72% market share in India. If you made it this far, please share this video with one person who you know will find it interesting. And follow me on LinkedIn. The link is in the description below. Until I see you in the next video, goodbye.